everybody, my name is Bella. I'm reading about, and I will tell you about and present to you about Speckled the band in Sherlock. For many years, I was a good friend of Sherlock Holmes, the famous private detective. During this time, Holmes solved many unusual mysteries, but perhaps one of the most unusual was the mystery of the Speckled Band. The story began in April 1883. At that time, Holmes and I were sharing an apartment in Baker Street in London. One morning, I woke up very early. To my surprise, Holmes was standing beside my bed. He was already dressed. "What's happened, Holmes?" I asked. "Is there fire?" "No, Watson," replied Holmes. "A client was just arrived. A young woman is waiting downstairs. She seems very worried and upset. I think she got something important to tell me. This could be an interesting case, Watson. That's why I woke you up." "I will come at once," I said. I was very interested in Holmes cases. My friend was a very clever detective. I very much admired his work. So I dressed quickly and hurried downstairs with Holmes. The lady was waiting into our sitting room. He was dressed all in black. Over her face she wore a veil. "Good morning, madam," said Holmes. "I'm Sherlock Holmes, and this is Teacher Watson, my friend, and Harper." Holmes shut the door and turned to the lady. "Your receiver, madam," he said. "You just must be cold. Sit near the fire and I will get you some hot coffee." The lady moved nearer the fire. Then she said, "It isn't the cold which makes me shiver. What it is then?" "It's fear, Mr. Holmes. It's terror." As she spoke, the lady raised her veil. We saw at once that she was rather frightened. Her eyes were like the eyes of a fearful animal. She was a young woman, but about 30 years old, but her hair was already turning grey with worry. Holmes looked at the lady carefully. Then he leaned forward and touched her arm. "Don't be afraid," she said kindly. "I'm sure we can help you. But first, please tell us your story." "Mr. Holmes," said our visitor, "I know I'm in terrible danger. Please tell me what to do." Mrs. Journal begins her story. "I'm listening carefully," said Holmes. So the lady began her story. "My name," she said, "is Helen Stoner. My father was an officer in the Indian Army, but he died when I was a baby. After his death, my sister Julia, and myself continued to live in India. My sister Julia and I were twins. When Julia and I were only 2 years old, my mother married again. She married a man who later gave to be Roylott. So Dieter Roylott became our stepfather. "Tell me about Dieter Roylott," said Holmes. "In the past, Dieter Roylott's family were very rich," said Miss Journal. "But as the years went by, they lost all their money. Now, Dieter Roylott has only a large old house and a small piece of land. The house is called Strokemoran. I'm living in a Strokemoran with Dieter Roylott now. When my stepfather was young, he studied medicine. After he became a doctor, he went to India. That's where he met my mother and later married her. My mother was a rich woman, went on Mrs. Journal. She had a private income. Every year he received a sum of about £1,000 from a bank. When she married Dieter Rollotte, an agreement was made about this money. What was the agreement? Asked Holmes. If my mother died, replied Mrs. Journal, Dieter Rollotte could inherit her income. After her death, he would receive £1,000 every year. But if my sister or I marry, one of the sum of £1,000 would go to us instead. We would receive part of the money. I see, said Holmes. After some years, we returned to England from India, continued Mrs. Journal. But soon after we got back, my mother was killed in an accident. At first, our neighbor, a Stuart Moran, was friendly with my stepfather. They were very happy that someone of the Rollotte family were living in a Stuart Moran again. But my stepmother didn't want to make friends with anyone. Whenever he went out, she quarreled with somebody. Is a very bad-tempered man and gets angry quickly. Soon all our neighbors were afraid of him. He have any friends at all? Asked Holmes. His only friends were gypsies, said Mrs. Journal. These gypsies moved around the country in the bands. Dieter Rollotte allowed them to use these to camp on his land. Dieter Rollotte is very fond of Indian animals. Two of these are cheetah and a baboon, were sent to him from India. They run around freely over his land. Everyone is terrified of this dangerous animal. So, Julia and I became more and more unhappy. When went on Mrs. Turner, no servants wanted to live at Stroke Morant, so we had to do all the work. When Julia died, Justice dead then, asked Holmes at once. He became very interested. Yes, said Mr. Stoner, he was to be married. The date had been fixed for the wedding, but 2 weeks before her wedding day, Julia died. The death of Julia. Holmes leaned forward excitedly. Tell me exactly what happened, he said. On the night of Julia's death, said Mrs. Jordan, my stepfather went to his room early. Julia and I were sitting together in my bedroom. We talked until about 11 o'clock. Then Julia went to bed. All the bedrooms at Throckmorton are in the same part of the house. They are next to each other. On the ground floor, the door of each bedroom opens into the same corridor. The windows from the one bedroom to the next. I understand, said Holmes. Thus, Julia was leaving my room that evening. She asked me a strange question. Tell me, Helen, she said, have you ever heard anyone whisper in the middle of the night? No, I said in surprise. Why? Because during the past few nights, replied Julia, I have heard a strange whisper in very low and clear, but I don't know where it's come from. Remember, I said, some gifts are coming near the house, probably one of the whistling at night. You're probably right, Julia replied. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Good night. She smiled at me and closed my door. Did you and Julia always lock your doors at night? Asked Holmes. Yes, replied Mrs. Journal. We were afraid of the cheetah and the baboon. They are dangerous animals. We didn't trust them unless our doors and windows were locked. So, this is the end of part 1. I will return your part 2 in tomorrow. Goodbye. Thank you for listening to me.